Hi, Doc. How's he doing?
Well, he isn't worse, but he isn't getting better.
South Park just crossed a line so dark that even their most loyal fans couldn't laugh anymore, and the IMDb rating proves it.
To make everything right, Stan Marsh is being given that chance. But to win.
So here's how this whole thing starts. Stanley's Cup follows this classic sports movie formula that you've definitely seen a million times. Stan's bike gets impounded, and instead of just paying to get it back like a normal person, he gets roped into community service coaching a Pee-wee hockey team. If you've ever watched the Mighty Ducks, and let's be honest, you probably have, you already know exactly how this is supposed to go. Underdog team, inspiring coach, big game, miraculous victory. Easy, right? Except, well, this is South Park. So obviously, they're going to flip the entire thing on its head. The episode opens like a typical South Park scene. Stan joins a team made up of tiny kids who can barely stay upright on the ice. Then things take a sharp turn. We meet Nelson, a 4-year-old on the team who's terminally ill. His leukemia has already reached his bone marrow, and his parents do something shocking. They ask Stan, who's only 9, to talk to their dying son about death. Telling this to a child is absolutely uncomfortable and surreal.
Coach, can I talk to you for a second? Come to surrender, Coach?
Okay, so let's break down what actually makes South Park's dark humor work, because this is important. For over 2 decades, Matt and Trey have been pulling off something that honestly seems impossible. They take the most offensive, uncomfortable topics imaginable, and somehow make us laugh so hard that we forget we should probably be offended. Think about Scott Tenorman Must Die. Cartman feeds a kid his own parents in chili. Like, his actual parents. Ground up, in chili. That's genuinely horrifying when you say it out loud. But that episode, it's got a 9.5 on IMDb. Fans call it a masterpiece. Why? Because the whole thing is so ridiculously elaborate, so absurdly over the top, that your brain can't process it as anything but dark comedy. It's too insane to be taken seriously. Or take Kenny Dies. Same season, completely different approach. Kenny's dying of a terminal illness in the hospital, and it's actually emotional. You feel something watching it. But here's the genius part. While we're dealing with Kenny's death, Cartman's running around trying to legalize stem cell research just so he can clone his own Shakey's Pizza. The comedy never stops, even when things get heavy. Stanley's Cup attempts that same balancing act. But this time, a lot of viewers felt like they were watching the tightrope snap.
All right, I guess we should taste each other's chili, huh?
This chili looks pretty good. Here's mine.
The episode follows Stan through the motions of coaching this team, dealing with Nelson's condition, and promising the dying child that they'll win the big game. We get the typical sports movie training montages, the rival team intimidation, Randy's flashbacks to his own childhood hockey trauma, all the classic beats. Then comes the finale. The opposing team doesn't show up to the championship game, so the Colorado Avalanche players nobly volunteer to let Stan's team of 4-year-olds play against the Detroit Red Wings instead. You know, the professional NHL team. And here's where South Park goes full South Park. Instead of the miraculous underdog victory we've been conditioned to expect from every sports movie ever made, the Red Wings absolutely brutalize these children on the ice. We're talking professional athletes body-checking toddlers into the boards. It's a massacre. The game ends in a blowout, and as We Are the Champions plays, we see the Red Wings celebrating while Stan's team lies broken on the ice. Cut to Nelson in the hospital. Because they lost the game, Nelson loses his will to live. The episode ends with a flatlining monitor and 2 words on screen: no hope. A 4-year-old child literally dies from cancer because they lost a hockey game.
The other Pee-wee hockey team didn't show up. There's nobody for you to play. Thanks for making the trip, though.
Fans didn't hold back. The reaction was instant and harsh. Stanley's Cup quickly dropped to the bottom of IMDb ratings. And if you scroll through fan forums or comment sections, you'll notice the same thing people keep saying. It was just way too dark. But here's the interesting part. This isn't the first time South Park killed off a kid with cancer. They already did it in Kenny Dies, and that episode is actually one of the most loved in the entire series. So, what made this one so different? The difference is balance. Kenny Dies is genuinely sad, but it's also funny throughout. Cartman's subplot about using Kenny's stem cells to create his own Shakey's Pizza provides constant comedic relief. The The absurdity of framing Kenny's death as this serious, dramatic event when he usually dies every episode and nobody cares. That's the joke. The darkness is balanced by genuine humor. Stanley's Cup, on the other hand, spends most of its runtime following sports movie cliches. Stan awkwardly talking to Nelson about death is uncomfortable, but it's not particularly funny for most viewers. The final massacre and Nelson's death are shocking, but they don't land as comedy, they land as cruelty. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button, or Matt and Trey might make an episode about you, and trust me, you don't want that kind of attention.
My name is Eric Cartman, and I live in Colorado. My best friend in the whole world is Kenny McCormick, and he's sick right now.
Dark comedy basically has this unspoken rule. Your joke needs to be at least as funny as it is disturbing. That's it. If you're going to make your audience uncomfortable, you better make them laugh hard enough that it's worth it. It's like walking a tightrope, and guess what? Even the best comedians lose their balance sometimes. Matt and Trey have talked about this balance so many times over the years. Here's the thing people miss. They're not just being edgy for shock value. They're using these extreme, messed up situations to point out actual absurdities in our society, in human behavior, in all the dumb stuff we do. When they nail that balance, it's absolutely brilliant. When they don't, you get Stanley's Cup. The episode makes a quiet but smart observation that a lot of us miss. Stan ends up on the losing side, the other team, in a classic sports movie finish. We're trained to cheer for the underdog, but how often do we stop and think about the people who lose so the hero can have their moment? Every feel-good victory usually means someone else's dream gets stomped. It's a surprisingly honest and kind of heavy idea when you actually think about it. But that clever concept gets completely buried under an ending that's just sad. There's no punchline in Nelson dying. There's no bigger point being made. It's just depressing, and for a lot of fans, that's where it stops being dark comedy and starts being cruel.
How come I don't get to grow up?
God damn it, dude, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Stanley's Cup is fundamentally a parody of sports movies, specifically The Mighty Ducks. And here's where things get interesting. South Park has parodied this exact genre before with massive success. Season 6's Aspen basically tells the same story. Stan gets shoved into a situation he never wanted, has to coach an underdog team against impossible odds, and battles a cartoonishly ridiculous villain. Fans love it, even though the plot is familiar. What makes it stand out is the comedy. Even when Stan's team is getting trounced and the stakes feel higher, the episode never loses its sense of fun. The bad guy is delightfully over the top. The drama is perfectly silly for a kid's ski contest, and, mercifully, it doesn't end on a dark note. Stanley's Cup tries to have it both ways. It wants to parody sports movies while also making a dark statement about those narratives. In trying to subvert every expectation, it forgets to give audiences a reason to laugh.
I don't think so, Coach. We're gonna beat you into the ground, cancer or no.
Even though a lot of people hate it, Stanley's Cup actually has some fierce defenders. And, weirdly, some fans think the ending is hilarious, not in a wholesome way, but because it's so shockingly brutal and unexpected. The gall of showing pro hockey players absolutely wrecking 4-year-olds on the ice and then cutting to a kid dying. To those viewers, that's peak dark comedy absurdity. It's so outrageous, it almost flips back into being funny. And look, these fans have a point about the satire angle. The episode basically tears apart how manipulative sports movies really are. Think about it. We've been trained by decades of these films to expect the miraculous comeback, the inspiring victory, the feel-good ending, by giving us literally the darkest possible version of that story. Matt and Trey are forcing us to realize how unrealistic and emotionally manipulative those movies actually are. There's also this meta element that's pretty clever. Stan literally tells everyone throughout the episode that they're following a sports movie formula, and movie logic says they should win. When that doesn't happen, it's like South Park is saying, screw your expectations. Reality doesn't work like Hollywood. For these viewers, Stanley's Cup isn't a failure at all. It's South Park being brutally honest and refusing to give audiences the happy ending they've been programmed to expect. And honestly, I can respect that perspective. If you want to see more deep dives into controversial South Park episodes and the stories behind television's most boundary-pushing moments, check out these videos.
$16.12. He is a disease. He is a cold, calculating man, and I will have revenge!